purpose of the review is to understand why a death has happened, especially an unexplained death, and to be able to get answers that many parents will want as to what has happened to their baby, and a step further to learn from whatever has happened so that it never happens to another baby or another family.
The review itself, in essence, is a group of professionals coming together. So that could be nurses, midwives, doctors, really looking at the care that was provided for parents as well as their baby. They'll look at things like, have we provided correct care? What was the really good care that was provided at that point? What can we learn from that? And was there areas that we really need to work on that are impacting on patient safety? Some of those things will be really quick, and we may identify things that we're concerned about very quickly. However, the main process of reviews is usually slightly longer, and that's to give professionals and nurses, midwives and doctors that chance to be able to really understand what happened, but also to be able to provide time for parents to give questions back into the review process as well.
We have a key contact person who will be in contact with you throughout, from the very beginning up until the end of the review process. So working with you and with every member of the team that was involved in the care of your baby to try to answer the question as to why. Why did this happen? How did it happen?
My name's Julianne Tierney. I'm the bereavement specialist midwife for NHS Lanarkshire. I support families who are recently bereaved. At some point after they've left the hospital, we would conduct a review which would look at their care from the minute they've stepped into the maternity services to when they were discharged following the loss of their baby. If there is any issues that have been identified, to be transparent with parents, to know that us as a health board take the death of a baby very seriously and look at this to prevent this happening to another baby in the future, but also to make sure that your questions are answered, and you're a very important part of that review process, because it's important that we know if you have any questions relating to any aspect of your care that they get answered.
When it happens to you, you think that every question's a silly question, but I think when you look back in hindsight, you realise you just need all the answers in order to accept what's happened. Write down all your questions, take a notepad with you. If you think of questions any time of the day or night, if you've got your notepad, I found that if I wrote it down, it helped me stop obsessing about it, knowing that I could ask the question at the review at a later date.
We're here to guide and support you, something that we can do in the time that suits you if you're not ready to have those discussions, but we can make sure that we give you the information so that when you go away you can, if a question pops in your head, write that down somewhere so that you could ask any questions relating to the care you received or why things were done a certain way. You can ask regarding the bereavement care that you've received as well, if there's any questions, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a question or a negative. If you feel there's been anything positive within your care that you felt supported with, then absolutely you can write that down as well.
I think for other bereaved parents, it's such a difficult thing to contemplate as to whether you want to be involved in the process. For me, I knew quite quickly that I did, and I knew that I needed that information in order to support my processing. And I think it's a really helpful thing. Going through the questions, never the what ifs, and there's an element of thinking, well, is this helpful or not? But actually it is so helpful.
There isn't usually a dictated schedule for how often the midwife should be in touch, but I think the midwives who take this role on will play it by ear and listen to the parents and how often they want contact. But that their role, that particularly the midwife, their role is to encourage the parents, if they want to, support them to participate in the process and get them to ask the questions that they really feel they need answered. And these are not questions usually that people are able to even think about in the immediate time period after a baby has died. So it will be something that happens subsequently in the days, weeks, even months down the line.
When things have just happened like that, sometimes all these things may not make sense. But for me, I think the review process is a very important a stage during your loss, and it would really go a long way in just healing you in your journey as a bereaved parent. And sometimes when I ask questions that cannot be answered now, it makes me upset.
Those what ifs, people say there's no point in what ifs, but there is. That's part of your processing, that's part of your coming to terms with the fact that this has happened. And there's not a promise that you're going to find out that this is what caused it. But regardless of that, even if you did find out the reason, it's not going to change it. But what it does do is it gives you all the information that you can have, which supports your processing of that event and also allows you to start to very gently think about the future. Think about where you're going from here.
Certainly in those early days, you're just numb and you really don't know whether you're coming or going. The grief that you feel, and you just feel at that point, or I certainly felt at that point, that any help or any clarity that we could get would just help us move forward, and that's important. It's move forward, not move on.